what do we got going on here? Netflix made headlines in 2011. Boom. Let's see. So we're looking at DVD, Blu-ray. We're just going to call those DVDs or discs. Let's just call them discs. We have data about 2009, and then we have more data about 2014. So we're just going to read through this. And best way to summarize something like this when you have multiple things to keep track of is a table. So let's see. What do we have to keep track of? We have to keep track of the year. We have to keep track of disc sales. So dollars, discs, and billion is thrown around a lot here. So I think we'll leave those numbers in billions as opposed to writing a ton of zeros. And we also have to keep track of streaming. So dollars for streaming. And that's also in billions. And then what do we got? 2009 data. 009, there we go. And then eventually we get 2014 data. Okay, so total disks, 2009, 8.73 billion. So I'm just going to write 8.73. And I know it's in billions, so I'm not going to write all those zeros. For the purpose of this problem, we're going to combine DVD and Blu-ray. Okay, and they're going to call them DVD. I'm calling them disks. That's okay. They'll start with a D. And then this company called IDStat predicted, so the prediction happened in 2011, they predicted in 2014 that the disc sales would decline by, so they're going to drop by 4.6. So then I'm going to subtract 4.6 billion, right? Decline by, that's tricky. So the 2014 number they predict would be what? 3 minus 0 is 3, 7 minus 6 is 1, 8 minus 4 is 4. So it's going to drop down to 4.13 billion, right? Decline by, subtract. So that's the disk information. And that streaming would grow from its current 2.3, okay, so current being 2009, 2.3 billion to 6.3. Okay, that's pretty straightforward, to 6.3 over the same time period. So 2009 to 2014. All right, so that's the data in a nutshell. And we've looked at a few other problems like this where we had to compare 2 years and 2 different things. So we've got it summarized. What should we do with it? What is the slope, including units for DVD sales, and then tell what that means. Okay, let's do that. Uh-oh, here comes Kitten, look out. Clearing space there. So what is the slope of disc sales? So slope is rise over run, so we're just going to focus on the discs, DVDs. Discs with a C. And we want the slope. So slope, remember, is change in output over change in input. All right, so output, input. So generally time is our input. We look at a time and we figure out what's happening on that time, and that would be the disc sales. So my change in output for DVDs is it went from 8.73 down to 4.13. That is a change of negative 4.6. So they gave me the rise there. So they're saying my rise for that one, I'm going to put it up here, is negative 4.6. That's my change in output, right? AKA rise. My run is the time that went by. So we jumped from 2009 to 2014, counting on my fingers, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That would be 5 years. If there's any doubt, write it down to be careful. 2014 minus 2009. Whip out your calculator, double check that. So I get negative 4.6 over 5. Let's get a calculator and double check these things. I like Mth098 scientific calculator. But my Google calculator is nice too. Right, I could do 2 plus 2 in Chrome here. There's the calculator. So double check 2014 minus 2009. Too many zeros. How about that? That looks better. 5 years. Okay, I was right. Good. Count on my fingers very well. And then if we take our negative 4.6, right, that decline, and then we divide by 5, we get a new number, negative 0.92. Let's go back to the notebook. Put that in there. All right, so we get a slope of, let's write it up here, negative 0.92. Now slope is rise over a run. Here I had a rise and a run. Here it's not a fraction anymore. You could always write that over 1. So negative 0.92 is equal to negative 0.92 over 1. So that's my slope, the negative 0.92. Negative 0.92 what? Well, what was my output? My output was billions of dollars. So I should make a note of that. Output was billions of dollars. What was my input? My input was years. So this number right here, I took billions of dollars divided by years. So this must be negative 0.92 billion dollars per year, because I have a 1 in the bottom. You could also say the slope is negative $4.6 billion every 5 years. That's another way to talk about the slope here. But usually we go with the simplest one, where we divide it out and we just get a single number. So that's my slope. But we're going to write out in words what that means, the slope. So if I'm asked or you're asked to interpret the slope. So I'm going to do that on another page because I want to do streaming in that space. So I would say that to interpret this slope would be to say that the DVD revenue for Netflix, there we go, declined, dropped, something like that to indicate the negative, declined by $0.92 billion per year. Right, so that'd be the kind of the simplest way I could state it. I want to be specific about what declined. Is the DVD revenue that declined, by how much it declined. And I should be a little bit more clear. This isn't like forever. This was only from 2009 to 2014. So that would be a good sentence talking about that. Remember the writing principle of the class? If somebody looks at something you wrote, they shouldn't have to look back at the question to figure out what the heck you're talking about. So if I just wrote, it declined by 0.92, what is it? What is 0.92, right? You got to give me more information. Then I look back at the question to kind of figure out what the heck are you talking about here? So be complete, please. All right, so we got the disk stuff there. What else do we want to do with that disk stuff? So we got a slope. We know what the slope is measured in, and we have a nice sentence for what that slope means. Then we have to write an equation where t is the number of years after 2009. Oh, so t is different than the year, like years after 2009. So 2014, right, t would be 5. Better write that down, make sure we get it right. All right, so further information, I have a new variable called t. I'm going to sneak it over here in my table. And t is years after 2009. And when you write these problems down, I highly recommend you rewrite statements like that were given to you as a reminder. Otherwise, like I tend to do silly things like they say, hey, what year did this happen? And I say, oh, it happened in year 5. You mean year 5? That's crazy. Oh, 5 years after 2009, that's what you meant. Oh, okay. So write it down, remind yourself. So for example, 2014 is 5 years later, and 2009 is 0 years after 2009. Okay. Now, important. I want an equation like y equals mx plus b. And they said to use d instead there and t there. Now m, I got m, that's up there, so equals negative 0.92. B, what's that? B is that starting value we talked about before. The starting value is always a point, 0 whatever. And if I look at my table now, I can see that I have a 0. So this must be the whatever right there. So that's my y-intercept, the amount in 2009, which is where we started. So that would just be 8.73. And there's my equation. Put that in a cute little box. Maybe in a cute little 3D box to the best of my artistic ability, which kind of sucks with this pen, but there we go. All right, can we do the same thing for the streaming? So I'm going to put the streaming in another table because this got kind of messy. Next page, new page, streaming. So what do we know about streaming? We have the year and we have dollars, billions. And in 2009, it was 2.3 billion. In 2014, it was 6.3 billion. Am I getting that right? 2.3, 6.3, 2.3, 6.3. Yep, looks good. And then similarly for this problem, I'm going to be asked about using T instead of the year. And remember, T is years after 2009, which makes 2009 year 0. 2014 is 5 years later, we calculated before. So my equation, I need a slope. And we've, for the last couple of lessons, been looking at this equation for slope. So sometimes we need it, sometimes we don't. I didn't use it last time because I could kind of see what was going on the table, but I'm going to use it this time. So I'm going to say this is my second point here. And my y's, y2 would be the 6.3. Y1 would be the 2.3. And I'm going to use t as my denominator variable, which is like my x, and that's going to be 5 minus 0. So 2.3 minus 6.3, that's pretty easy. That's 4. 5 minus 0 is 5. So here I get 4/5. If you want to turn that into a decimal, that's cool too. You can. 4 divided by 5 on a good day is 0.8. What does that number mean? Well, that goes back to what my variable means. My output was measured in billions of dollars. And my input was measured in years. So this 0.8 must be billions of dollars per year. And if we wanted to interpret that, write a sentence for that, we could definitely do that. Let's see, what are we talking about here? We're talking about Netflix streaming revenue. So the Netflix, there we go, streaming revenue. Now let's see, the other one declined because it was negative. This one's positive, so it's increasing. Increased by, now I'm not just going to put 0.8, 0.8 what? billion per year. So I'm going to put the $sign 0.8, put in billion there as opposed to a whole bunch of zeros per year. Oops, not that per pair, per, there we go, year, there we go, year. Is that good? It's not bad. Netflix streaming revenue increased by $0.8 billion per year. And I tell my mom that, and she's like, whoa, that's a lot. When was this? Oh, right, when? From 2009 to 2014. So we want to be as descriptive as we can with the information we were given without writing a book. And that's a pretty good sentence. I like it. Nice. That's what the slope means. Next, we want an equation. Okay, so equation. Y equals mx plus b, our standard equation. And I believe I was asked instead of a y to use an s for the output and a t years after 2009 for the input. We just calculated our slope was 0.8. And remember, the y-intercept b here is also the starting point. Here's my starting point. That's the starting y value, plus 2.3. Cool. Nailed that. How we doing? So this is kind of like that milk and soda problem we did before. All right, we've got a slope. We know what the units are. We write beautiful sentences. We have an equation. In what year do the models, what models? The equations are the models. In what year do the equations predict streaming video sales to exceed DVD sales? Oh, interesting. So what do we know? Back here, looking at my messy table on page 1 here, we know that disc sales are going down, starting at almost 9 billion, and streaming sales are going up. Okay. And somewhere, oh, check this out. In 2014, it looks like disc sales are lower than streaming sales. So somewhere in between, they must cross paths. So we got to figure out when that happens. And to use the models to do that means we just set them equal to each other. And then we can figure out when one is more than the other. So we've got, let's see, we want to know when the disc revenue, DVD revenue equals the streaming revenue. And our disc formula was negative 0. something, 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 92. 92 T plus the starting amount, 8.73. We want to know when that is going to match the 0.8 T from the streaming plus the starting point of 2.3. And we've solved a few equations like this before. We got this. My recommendation is the T stuff should stay on the left and the other stuff should go to the right. So I'm going to subtract the 0.8 T over to this one. So let's see, 0.9, or let's see, subtract, negative, negative, really, that means we're adding. So that's negative 1.72 T. We better double check that on a calculator. I haven't dealt with the 8.73 yet. That's now gone and the 2.3 is just chilling there. So then we can move the 8.73 over. I add, subtract to move it. Ooh, can I do that in my head? Negative 6.43 maybe? I'm gonna double check that on a calculator. That should be gone. I also have to double check my 1.72 T. All right, let's see where we're at. So calculator, let's use Desmos this time. So the first thing I did was take that negative 0.92 and subtracted the 0.8. Negative 1.72, good, I got that right. And then from that 2.3, I subtracted 8.73, negative 6.43. Cool, I'm on a roll. Last step would be to get rid of that multiplication by dividing. So we're going to break that multiplication there by dividing by negative 1.72. A number divided by itself is 1. 1 times t is t. And then I have to divide this by negative 1.72. And that I can't do in my head easily. Not even on a good day, and today is just an okay day. So we have to take that negative 6.43 and divide it by the negative 1.72. And ooh, I did something wrong there. That doesn't look right. Negative 1.72. Okay, did I type what I said in my notes, or wrote in my notes? Notes. Negative 6.43 divided by negative 1.72. Yeah, that looks right. Positive 3.74. I don't know how many decimal places I need. I'm going to go for 2 for now. 3.74. So that rounded wavy equal sign 3.74. 3.74 what? What did T mean again? Let's see. T was years after 2009. So that would be 3.47 years after 2009. Okay, so 2009, 10, 11, 12. So that would be like 3/4 of the way through 2012. So that would be, if you add those together, 2012.74, 3/4 of the way through. Where does that put us in, like September-ish? All right, what's the question want to know? How do they want that answer? In what year? In the year 2012, right? Yeah, that's what we found there. Cool, did it. All right, so I'll let you fill your own in, submit that question, get some points.